week 16 of the fantasy basketball season. And here's a few forwards you should drop off your roster this week who are not producing. The first guy's Brandon Clark of the Memphis Grizzlies. So Clark on the season, he's ranked 110 in fantasy basketball, 11.3 points a game, 5.6 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 66% from the foul line, and 51% from the field for Clark. But the last couple weeks, his rankings 250th in this time, 9.2 points a game, 5.2 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 61% from the foul line, and 45% from the field. So right now, Clark, he was supposed to be a big piece here to this Grizzly team this season. And we've seen flashes and good run of games from him over the season. But right now, he just came back from a couple game layoff, and he hasn't been the same as Clark. The numbers have gone down. The playing time is about only 20 minutes a game for him. And right now, he's owned in way too many fantasy leagues for a guy whose production ain't all that great, in my opinion. The last 3 games for him, April 9th at the Knicks, 19 minutes, 5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal. April 11th versus the Pacers, 22 minutes, 6 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, and a block. And last night versus the Bulls, a decent game, 9 points, 9 rebounds, an assist, a steal, and a block. But right now, it's just not eye-popping numbers, in my opinion, here for Brandon Clark. And there's better guys who's going to score the basketball more, get you some rebounds, and hit some three-pointers, which Clark doesn't do on the waiver wire this week. So right now, I think it's a no-brainer drop to get rid of Clark. And if he gets hot again, then you pick him up. But right now, he really hasn't done anything this whole month of April to be good for fantasy owners. The next player at the forward position I will look to drop this week's Gordon Hayward of the Charlotte Hornets. Hayward, we know he's out with a foot injury for 3 to 4 weeks, but right now he's still owned in 85% of fantasy leagues, and I don't think he's coming back for the rest of the regular season here. And obviously the Hornets, they're not that great of a team this season. We've seen LaMelo Ball go down. They still got a chance for the 8th seed or the playing game, but right now with Hayward out, I don't think they're going to rush him back. They gave him $120 million in the offseason, and right now I don't think he's coming back, and I think he's an easy drop, but he's still owned in 85% of fantasy leagues. And don't get me wrong, Hayward, he had a great season this year, ranked 53rd in fantasy basketball, 19.6 points a game, 5.9 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 1.2 steals a game, 2 threes a game, 84% from the foul line, and 47% from the field. So those are great numbers for Hayward. But like I said, his timetable last week was a month he's going to be out. And right now, most fantasy seasons end week 19, week 20. So if you make it to your finals or your semifinals of your leagues, then maybe he'll come back and play. But for most owners who are, just trying to make it and get into the playoffs and need the roster spot or the injured spot, he's a guy definitely droppable, and he should be dropped in more leagues, in my opinion. And the third and final forward I would look to drop this week's another injured player, Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies. So the clock's running right now versus Jaren Jackson Jr. to come back. And like I mentioned last week, he was a player that was only going to miss maybe a month or two at most, but we haven't seen him at all this season with the knee injury. And I think there's more to the knee injury than what the Grizzlies are letting people know and lead on to believe here, because he's missed the whole season. And in my opinion, he probably tore an ACL or an MCL or something, because he's been out way too long. He's already missed the first 55 games of the season here for the Grizzlies. And Jackson last year, he was a great ball player though, 17.4 points a game, 4.6 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 1.6 blocks, 2.5 threes, 74% from the foul line, and 46% from the field. But Jackson, teams have been holding on to him all season, and he just hasn't come back yet. And it's been a disappointment, obviously. And there's a lot of players that have been hurt and banged up this year, where if you're a Jackson owner and you've wasted the injured spot all year for a guy who hasn't played, and now you're in a rut where you might not make the playoffs or whatever the case may be, I would just drop him, in my opinion. You've waited too long. He hasn't got on the court, and there's been no new news on him in the last month. So that's a few forwards I would look to drop here in week 16 of the fantasy basketball season.